what it ends up looking like for the students side of it is I now have pictures of and proof of their skill at that time. So this was one that my student teacher did that had them work on the cues, and they also did it by, you know, taking picture and then moving it over, but this is what it becomes to be able to see, and now I've got a portfolio and we do it again to see what it looks like. So that is the assessment at the next step that you can't necessarily do all in one sitting or one part of class, but they can add to it throughout the year or throughout the unit. Now, in Google Classroom or in your LMS, you would have the portfolio created and you would assign it. And for some, assigning it and everything, sorry about that, there, can be a struggle sometimes. So you also want to make it to the point where you can share it so people who may not, if they want to use their device or something, or they have their own Google Drive and everything, they can make their own copy and everything and take care of that. So in that version, when you do that and you want them to make their own copy, this is one of those shortcut sections. Anytime you want somebody to have a copy of a slide deck and you don't want them to edit it, you don't want them to mess up the original, the address here, so if I put the address in and I delete back to there, to the first slash, and you type in copy, okay, you change edit to copy. This is what they see.
Does that include for like Google Form stuff?
It can, yes. So this is what you see, and what it does is it makes the copy within their drive if they have the Google account. But this is so when all the links on my presentation, you guys are gonna see this screen come up to those different things because I don't need you, and I don't want you to edit the original. I want you to then have your own copy of it, so then you can mess and do what you want with it without having all of a sudden, you know, somebody from Lander log in and change something. So that's a big thing is on most Google things, you change that edit to copy and it makes them their own version. Okay, so again, if we take a Google form, there's the word edit. We take the address, we change edit to copy. Do you want to make a copy of the document? You click on it, and it will, as it's thinking, it's making a copy of the form. So now you don't have to worry about somebody adjusting your settings. Now, those who are working on those templates, when you're doing an assessment level, and it's got the full rubric layout, so if you're looking at this one, and you have all these names, your template one should only be here. So then when you make that copy, they don't have to, even though it was quick for me to delete all those names, they don't have to remember to go in the names. They can just load their new set of names. Okay, so in Google, edit at the end becomes copy. Okay, so that's also when you're doing consistency throughout your district or throughout your group, that's a way to make sure you're sharing stuff that, so they don't have to remember to go right click, make a copy. Because I work with my students on when we're doing our scripts for morning announcement, right click, make a copy. No, they just open it up and start changing it. It's like, Okay, right click. Even if you say make copy, do not edit, they still open it up and edit. Okay, so we run into that. So that is the portfolio. Oops. As I look at all my tabs, sorry about that. That is the portfolio layout for a higher order assessment that requires you to build something over time. Okay, you've got that step there with doing that. Now, again, if you're using the LMSs, it's even easier to assign it because then you just select the kids and attach it to the assignment. Okay, any questions on that? All right, so that was one of the QR codes over there that brought that up. The final type of, the final link up or showing is the Pacer real quick, just because I had people ask about it. I have a form for the Pacer that shows up. I have the kids do this. This is a peer-to-peer assessment where they have the runner's name, and I'll just show you what the kids see. Scorekeeper, runner, grade, age, pre-post, instructions. They watch and they mark, oh, missed 4, got 5, got 6, got 7, missed 9. Okay, so 8 is where they finished, and then they hit submit. And on one of my versions, I have a question down here that says final lap completed. And what that does is then it allows me to quickly, and I'll add it to this one, final lap completed. I don't want them to type a number in. So similar to the response validation for your time card, this is where it is, or for having them check in with that business code. So I'm gonna go response validation, number, okay, and then I can make it whole number, and it's gotta be a number. So there you go. You can make it a very specific thing, so you can actually tell it to match. So contains, you can even make it websites, but if I go number equal to, and I give it, 10, but I just want it to be a number, so it needs to be a whole number. So now if they try to add anything other than a number at the bottom, it tells them what it must be. So they have to type the number in to submit, and that's what it goes. Now this, it gets partnered with this video. So it's about, and I have other versions of it, but this is one I tend to use.
Capacity test that progressively gets more difficult
as I make everybody
continues.
cringe.
The
So
20-meter pacer test will begin
this
in
gets
30 seconds.
projected up on the
Line
wall.
up at the start.
Runners or the
The
scorekeepers are
running
at the
speed
end. They have
starts
the
slowly,
tablet.
but gets faster
Everybody
each
can
minute
see
after you
this,
hear this signal.
and it goes through.
A single lap should be
And again,
completed
this is
each
that
time you hear
compounding
this sound.
assessment where students are
Remember
having
to
to
run in a
track
straight
each other
line
and help.
and run as long as possible. The second time you fail to complete a lap before the sound, your test is over. The test will begin on the word start. On your mark, get ready, start.
And they run down. Kids are following, kids are watching.
1.
So now they have a visual cue of what lap they're on, so the kids tracking can track it. The runners are seeing. There are other ones out there that break the timing down. There are ones that have a little dude that moves across. There are all sorts of different ones that people put out now, but having this projected increases the accuracy of the Pacer test as the results for the data. So that is one way that it's been added within that Pacer assessment. Okay. So again, those are the 2 steps going back and everything. So now what I want you to do, you're looking at assessment, you've been discussing, you've been doing that. Some of you have created stuff. You have things that you want to try. You've tried creating. I want you to take that time. We'll take about the next half hour. You're going to take that try, and now you're going to put it into practice. So if you're like, I'm doing a Padlet, or I need to see the Padlet, so we can set that up. I'm going to have pictures. I want, I'm going to build a portfolio. I want you just to answer my questions, my exit slip. we've got the whole back area. If you're wanting to make GIFs and you want other people to, record and do it, this is the time where it's an up and moving and taking what we just worked on before lunch and everything and applying it to our actual setting. Okay? Does that make sense? Everybody got at least one thing that they feel that they want to take and actually put it into practice? Yes? Cool? All right, so we'll go again about the next half hour into that, and then we will continue on with what to do and how to align and go that way. Okay, so you're on. We got questions. If you need questions, you can come around and ask. Get up moving. If you need other equipment, you need to see something, we just got to make sure we put the equipment back. You've got the big open space. So really, not many people should be at the tables because you're up trying things. Okay?
That display, did you make that?
But I promptly ripped it off because I didn't want to deal with network issues. So yes. Yes. So if you just use the thing I just showed you, I didn't show you, you can then.
So I just made a personal social responsibility. And I kind of been the same for what I said.
Yes. So yeah. So a question came up, and you guys work, just if you want to listen, that's fine. Somebody asked about quizzes, and I'm just going to do a quick show through. So for those that saw quizzes and we're really excited about it, you do have to sign up. I would sign up with your work account. And really the first thing with that is search. PE and health. They have hundreds of thousands of PE and health questions. Find one. You can try it with assign homework. The live assign homework is what we were doing. And it gave the game code, which can even be imported to the different platforms and such. So quizzes is another. So if you create one, share a game code to somebody around you and have them try it. For those that are doing quizzes is.
Could you show another Padlet?
Yes.
Sign up for Padlet too. I think
Yep.
some people may not have done it.
Yep. Okay, so Padlet. For those that, there was a couple who asked about Padlet. So Padlet is free as well, but they have a restriction that I'll show you how to navigate. Again, you can link it to your work account, makes things easy. With Padlet, you can have 3 Padlets that are live and active. Okay? However, when it comes to archive, you can have tons of Padlets that have been archived and saved. So when you create your Padlet, okay, let me shut one down here real quick. You archive a past one, make your Padlet, you have your choices. I just want a skill wall developed. Gonna press skill, give it a title. Down here, I want new posts to be last, so my instructions stay at the top. Comments can be on, reactions can be on. You can then have them grade based on star level. Secondary, here's the require approval button. Here's the profanity filter. Next, you have your Padlet. You make your first one, the instructions. It's going to stay there. The share button, it actually creates its own QR code. You copy that image and place it where in a slide deck, or you can copy the clipboard and you can paste the link in the clipboard to your LMS. Okay, so again, that was just recorded all the way through, but for those who want to use a Padlet, that's how you start it to create it up. Okay. And again, I will show you guys, I'll open one of the past Padlets so you can see what the kids have done with it. Let's go. So this was a nutrition. when they were virtual, I had them post my food plate pictures. So this was kids posting their lunches from home. So yeah. Okay, if we can regroup back to the tables. If you need water, you need something to snack on quickly, and then we're gonna jump back into it. Okay, so on a device at your table, log in. Game code. Don't care what device you're gonna have. You may need a little set to move, so make sure if you have to get up and move, you got a little space. So what this is a higher order thinking assessment style in quizzes. They actually rolled it out in the last year and a half. It's actually a slide presentation that you build questions into. So you don't have to recreate something new. If you've got a PowerPoint slide or a Google slide deck that you use, you can actually import it. But what this does is, especially like in this space where kids are using their one-to-one devices, or you know what, I want to manage at the rate we're going. We're talking about something important, in the health world, and I want to. So for those that have the 20 minutes of PE and 20 minutes in health, and I want to combine and keep them doing movement longer, I can then do this slide deck, have them be presented it on their screen. We're going to go through it together. But then I can build questions and stuff in that are health focused as we're doing movements. So I've got 11 people in. There are more than 11 people here. Let's get everybody going. 13 people are in. Yep. $16. Now this one is less about the competition of points, which I mean most everybody enjoys. This is actually keeping them on task with what's going on and making sure that they have the information and they're paying attention. Now, I've gone through most of these slides, so I have a pretty straight idea of this. This was not one I created, it's what somebody else created, but they have several 100,000 ones that get created every day, all the time. You start figuring out who you trust, and the great thing about this is you can start building your collection, but if you look up like my username on this, you can actually get and go through the collections I've built and the ones I use and then copy and make them your own and change them up. So once you do that in your district and everybody's on, you can actually start grouping them together. So similar to in Google Drive, we need this one. Well, okay, we now have a collection that we share and we can move it through, which makes consistency across the school, across the building, across the board. Also, this is a good way to figure out, especially when you're creating stuff, cues that are the same, phrases that are the same, making sure that you line up that way, because we all potentially could say how to do an overhead squat and have the same 5 cues, but it sounds 5 different ways. So we want to make sure. Okay, 27, that sounds like a good place. We'll rock from here. Okay, so I'm going to start it. So I am in control of what's going on. So you see this slide presentation, which means you don't have to watch. This is really good if you don't have a projector. So if you don't have a projector, this is a great way for the kids in a small group or individually to still see what's going on as you're talking. Okay, so they've updated a couple of things. We're just gonna skip through there. Okay, so, physical fitness, the ability to move through, we're presenting. Okay, we're giving them the data. This also works really well in the health classroom where you're having them all sit. Okay. Next question. It's an open-ended response, so you probably will have to type. This also allows those kids that may struggle in typing, giving them the leeway to, put what you want, or you show the responses, it allows them, hey, if you're not sure, look at the responses that others are writing. It's time. Okay. 993077. It's at the bottom of the screen. And now this is where you also get the engagement from the kids that don't like to talk in class. You're quiet one, but they can sit it. You've now given them an outlet to be able to respond without having to call them out or go, hey, Johnny in the back, what's your answer? So it allows that. Okay? 19, 20. Now you can set the time limits and you can, make it respond quicker. You can stop it. You can move it around. Okay, I can also pull up the participants view and I can see who's done it. I can pull up the question if somebody needs to read it big again. Okay, so we're at 25. So we got about 6 more responses we're waiting on. I have 40 seconds left on those responses. Four responses left. 30 seconds left. Three responses left. 2 responses left. So that gives us discussions. Okay, physical fitness components. Here are the pieces we're talking through. There are the 11 components. They fall under 2 categories, health-related, skill-related. We go through it. Next question. So we talked, we went through it, we presented it. Are you paying attention? Okay. Which of the following is not a health-related component of fitness? And again, I can have it so you can see. I don't, if it's a question like this, I may not want to show the results as it's going because all of a sudden then everybody decides that they know the answer. I may throw the question up so they can see, or I may just show participants so we can see who's done it or not. So we got 2 people, 2, 1. Okay. And you can tell who has their audio on. No, it's good. So there's the leaderboard. We're seeing where numbers stack up. Okay. So there was no points on that. We go through. Ooh, next question, next part of it. But now these are making it higher order thinking because they're having to take what we're talking about and put it in perspective. They're having to take the information right away. Now, again, does this have to be 20 slides long? Absolutely not. This is the way that you can engage when you're giving the information. Okay? But now, instead of just standing there and talking to a slideshow, they're actually having to ask questions. You're getting the responses in real time. Because how easy is it to tune out and just go, when somebody's presenting? Boom. Okay. All right. So, leaderboard showing where it shifts. Okay, this one doesn't necessarily have points aligned to it, but now, okay, there's our health-related, skill-related. We go through talking about the different ones. Okay. Talking about the different ones. So I'm presenting information and I'm keeping the kids focused on what we're doing because they're not sure when the next question's coming up. And two, if they're at the points, they're going, great. That kid in the back who needs that extrinsic point bonus to keep them, on track. All right, I'm at this level. I've got it. Okay, so we go through talking about all the different ones. So again, another open-ended value or significance, taking your test at the start of the school year. And now you've opened up the cognitive side of what a student knows what to think. Or how they think. Very easily you can put in, after each of those, how do you feel about the broad jump? And do it through the emotional side of it, the affective domain. But this is one of those higher order processing for the students. Okay? As much as I would like to let it waste all the time out, that last one in there. Wrong button. So now I have my report that I can see and see how everybody went through, and I can look at the questions, and I now have, where they hit, and I have the results to look at, so I can download the results and everything. So now I have that data, and I can run this multiple times over different ways, and the data's there, and it creates a new data each time. But now, here is everybody's different answers. Okay, so again, that's data that I can use that I don't have to go necessarily sift through. Okay, so that's another of those higher order processing. As you're putting things together, it's another tool that you can use. Okay, so now what I want to do, as we go through, we're going to clean up some of these. So your districts, or you, as your group and everything, you have the idea that you're looking at standards-based grading and moving in that direction. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we use our time efficiently and effectively with standards-based grading, so we're not necessarily wasting time or trying to solve something that maybe doesn't need to be solved. So last summer, my district, as much as I appreciate what they did, they decided, and it was a 4-year process, they decided they were going to take the state standards at all levels in all contents and they had the admin team do it first across the district, identify and break down and copy them all into single parts. So what we ended up with was our Colorado state standards in a spreadsheet and the grade level with every part of the standard broken down into sections. So they had the admin team do this first. Why? Because then they created they call it a lesson plan generator or a lesson performance progression list, and they have it all done. So what they did was then they had those content areas pick priority. Because again, I had 51 hours. 51 hours. High school, you have a little less than 50, about 53 standards at the high school level that you have to meet in the 4 years you have them. In just kindergarten, I have 26. You start timesing that by the multiple grades, first grade is almost 40. And it starts adding up really quickly of all these things that align. And so what we did was we sat down, and if you look over on the side, we've filled in. We had the teachers, so I was one of them. We sat down as a group and we went, okay, in this standard 3, describe, create, demonstrate movements requiring crossing the midline. Okay, is that endurance, leverage, readiness, high stakes? Is it priority or is it a support? And what would a keyword for that look like? Now, so we went through and marked all this. It took about 2.5 days of pretty high-end focus, which, like us here, there was a lot of extra, engagement. So it ended up becoming a whole progression that then when the document puts it together, it actually fills in this form. So this is, my school district it's a modern teacher-based idea, so they do a lot of the learning plans and whatever. But it basically took every standard and it gave it its own way to mark, which then I turned into Google Forms that makes life way easier. However, looking at the statement itself, what it did was it allowed us to go through and actually see the learning progressions and understand what we needed and what it looked like for the progression to happen. So if anybody, we were aligning the standards, we were creating our data, our documents, we were creating those things, but if it wasn't marked as priority, then it wasn't something we had to make sure was stated. And as it goes through, again, you're looking at all the different levels, taking those marks, those benchmarks, and we changed they wanted us to student-friendly language for the proficient developing, because a basic is going to be, I need help with this, and your advanced is above and beyond or the next level. So you don't have to define that when you start looking at standards-based assessment. What you need to define are the 2 ranges in between. What is a 2? What is a 3? And if you notice, and again, we're not working on this today. This is the introduction because you guys have so many awesome things you were doing. I don't want to sully it with going, oh yeah, and by the way, no. This is for after school year's done, looking at next year and on, because if we do too much work with this now, does anybody know what's happening in the next 2 years?
They're rewriting national.
Oh yeah, national, and then what happens after they rewrite national? State gets rewritten. So right now, getting us the tools, getting us this in this mindset and this motion is great, but we don't necessarily need to be pushing it and going, you need, because you're going to have to do it again in 2 years, if that. And so looking at what tools you're coming up on and how you want to approach it as a district or as your building or as your schools, this can really help. So we took the standard, okay, and move in different directions at a high, medium, and low level space. Proficient, so grade level, that is grade level, but student words, I can. Developing, well, I can move but there's differences. Not a lot. There's differences. And that was something that, as we sat down, if it was a priority standard, there was a very distinct difference, whereas if it is a support standard, it's not something that we're looking for that as something we're going to mark. So if you notice the next one, demonstrate the locomotor movements in a variety of pathways. So the variety of pathways in travel is the important part. If they can do it in one or two, that's developing. They're showing they understand it. So that's where, when you're looking at standards-based assessment or grading throughout the grade levels, it's those little changes. This is a rubric. This is my rubric as I go through. Okay, there are districts all throughout the country that do this similar thing as they're walking through it. But what happens is people come in and they hand you the standards and they say, break these down. And a third grade class or an English class, they can look at those and they have those, and those are all relatively aligned. We have so many different variations in our standards because of the amount of skills we go through that it can be very daunting. So as you're developing your tools and your assessments over the next school year even, start looking at, what does this look like on a 1 to 4? What does this look like in a rubric? If 4 is, I'm performing at a 5th grade level and I'm in 3rd grade, great. So if you're 4, that's a 4. Your threes are looking, that's grade level. That's showing that they can do it. Now, part of that is also showing that to parents, community members, your administration, and such like that. Because I'm sure, just like myself, there are people in here that when we do report cards, there's always some person, parent, child, or whoever, who gets frustrated because they have a 2 or a 3 in PE, but their kid does gymnastics 60 hours a week, and they have more physical activity than most anybody else. And I'm like, yes, that's physical activity. And it was a throwing and catching unit. It was not a gymnastics unit. And I'm glad that your kid took 6th in regionals, but they can't hit the wall from 5 feet away. They're not going to get a 3 at level, and I show you why. Here is what they're doing. They're excelling in the tumble, but something's got to give. You look at all the other sports, you look at, we run into that with kids who are on sports teams. Higher level, those who participate, dance, cheer, football, baseball, basketball, those who play on the high school teams, they're a higher level in some, and they're a lower level in others. And this backs us up in stating that. Same thing with the health. On the health side, and when you go through those different parts of health, yeah, you got the kids that can name all the food groups, they can go through it all, everything, but then you shift over and you're talking about drugs. They can rattle all the drugs off, but they're not entirely sure why they can or where they can or what it came from. And it's like, well, there's an influence somewhere, so you're highly knowledgeable there, but what's the reason why we shouldn't? Well, I don't know why we shouldn't, but we grow our own, so, to me, it's no big deal. It's like, you're missing something. So this allows you guys to see that. And I'll share this out. I did get permission from my district to share this out so you guys can kind of pick through it. But again, now we sit down and no, we're not doing that. Because you guys have so much stuff going on with the end of the year wrapping up, with everything you've got today. We're just needing to step back and look at it. So what I want to do now, we've got about 45 minutes before we really want to wrap it up. Process. So looking at standards, looking at that, what are things you want to go through? What are questions you have? Looking at the future, looking at what's coming, looking at what you're trying to do. How is it looking? What's something you want to try? So what I want you to do is on the Padlet that was shared out, and I'll throw the QR code back up just so you can grab it if you need it. Post 2 or 3 things in the columns. Things you're going to try, still things you have questions. I want to take the next, 20 minutes and have you guys, let's discuss it. Let's go through it. Let's process out loud. Dilemma, what somebody said earlier. Let's throw a dilemma out and let's see how different people resolve this, or what solutions your building or your team or your table can come up with.
You want to ask your question about
assessments that we talked about earlier.
One of the things that I struggle with is assessing my students either in small-sided games or during gameplay, because if I'm looking at you or I'm watching this group, the village is burning down behind me. And so what I've been using is I've been using my iPad and I record the gameplay and then I watch it at a later time, but it's tedious and I don't feel like the juice is worth the squeeze.
Okay. So the question was, what is assessment looking like during small-sided gameplay or gameplay while you have things going on? Anybody else run into that?
Yep.
Anybody else have, what are some of the things you guys do? I mean, he's saying he's recording, but it's like, that's like watching a lesson twice. As much as we love teaching, I really don't think we want to sit and watch a lesson twice. Well, what does anybody?
No good solutions from me.
Okay.
Well, if you have, I mean, I'm just spitball here, if you have your device, your iPad, your phone, whatever you're using, and you have your Google form or whatever that's up on the skills you're looking for, you can watch the game and, click what you're seeing on those kids that you have. You might have to play the game a couple of days to get through everybody.
Multiple days,
But you know we already know who's threes. We're looking for fours and twos, right?
Okay.
So you're looking for the ones that stand out of either good or bad. I would just do the fours and twos.
Okay.
And that's what I would do. And I would just do it still takes a while. Still might have 2 days worth of gameplay, but.
Yeah.
Well, and then just like your district has to have you make your standards priority, make your assessment priority, so you know the amount of things you're trying to assess.
Okay. Anything from secondary? A lot of gameplay, a lot of situation stuff there. What do you guys do to cover the spread?
Gameplay for me, it's only the fours, right? Like, so threes for me, you can do it in practice. Isolated practice, maybe practice gets a little harder. But gameplay, if you are really fluid in those skills and tactics in gameplay, you're a four, and that's easy to see.
Okay.
So I spend most of my time in practice.
Okay.
And gameplay is a reward, right? And I reward myself by standing off to the side and watching quality stuff.
Okay. What else? Anybody else? Okay, so the sport ed model has parts of that, where you have people on the teams that are required to do different jobs, and it's one example of that. For those that don't know the sport ed model, it's basically like running a recreation league. You have a coach, you have an assessor, you have an official, you have a tracker, you have a scorekeeper. Everybody has their jobs, and in your assessments, using that peer assessment idea and having your coach or having a teammate on that team who for that day or that game is assessing the gameplay of their team can give you that data as well without you having to necessarily take your focus onto just one game, which allows you to float through the courts or through the fields or whatever. So then you're allowing that. And to be fair, I mean, sport ed model is usually a secondary focus. I did introduce it to my 4th and 5th graders, modified extremely, but it gave them that sense of ownership in their team. And all of a sudden, after we talked about the social emotional side of it and how you can be frustrated, but you can't be frustrated at somebody else, they figured out how to help each other, which then when I was watching for the bigger pictures, I saw greater improvement of their skills, though I wasn't in on every play. And that allowed me to see across the board and see, all the courts going on. And so the thing I run into at the elementary level with gameplay situations, gameplay is the number one thing to tank any skill. You really want to mess with somebody's skill, put them in a gameplay situation. And so similar to it being the reward for your higher end skills, teaching gameplay as its own thing and building up to it with locomotor skills then allows you to use those parts as necessary so you can get the data you need. And so that's one way I've gone about doing it. At the high school level when I did it, I did rely a lot more on
on the All-Stars that, the kids who are on teams, who are on sports, that we said, okay, here's the expectation. I will still be watching, but it is your job to make sure your team's doing, going where they need to. And so that's where a lot of it became a lot of peer assessment or peer evaluation and relying on that. Because I agree, that's not a time where necessarily recording and going back and watching is beneficial, because it's not an efficient use of your time, because your attention's somewhere else, unless you've got a swivel and you're going to do a play-by-play, replay on everything. And I also do where I take a kid who does like tech. You do have the kids that are fluent in tech, and I'll give them a tablet and say, okay, you need to record. You wrote the gameplay. You need to record the play for me, almost as a highlight reel, so I can see the play being done. Now, whether or not you tank it or not, that's a whole nother thing, but I need to see the attempt, and then they would upload to a Padlet, and then they can self-evaluate or peer evaluate. And that was the way I would go about it, without having to try to watch myself teach over and over again. Okay. What else? How many people are like up here with their level of things that they have in their head right now? Yeah. Okay.
Here's one thing that we've been struggling with is vertical alignment.
Everybody struggles with vertical alignment.
What's one way that you guys kind of decided what? Did you guys all get together and do it? Did you guys?
So with the vertical alignment for stuff like this, we did have all of us together. We had representation from the elementary, the middle school, and the high school level. And we sat down and we went through it all. The advantage was that those of us that were in the group had taught at all of those levels at some point in our careers. So it wasn't I only know this much. It was we all had the experience to cross into each other's space and discuss, because there were things that are marked, here, balancing, demonstrating stillness in symmetrical and non-symmetrical shapes. At the third grade level, that's not really, a priority when you're talking about demonstrating movements that require midline or crossing. But in the fourth grade and in the middle school, they talk a lot about that transition and the timing and the balance control. And so we got to sit down and kind of pick as we went through to make sure things were fluid. The thing that runs into, and we can, I'm sure it's here, it's everywhere, when you talk about vertical alignment, unless everybody, is kind of on the same page of knowing you're responsible for something as you're passing it on. We're not grade level teachers, so we don't get them for a year and we don't have a vertical alignment all in the same building. Usually we're in a building by ourselves where there's a team of us, and once you hit high school, that vertical alignment is, just the kids who sign up for whatever classes based on what your schedule is built. So having those discussions and opening the line of communications, the first year we had a high school teacher going, they can't skip. They're coming from middle school and they're struggling with skipping. And it's like, so they were getting frustrated about being able to have to teach the kids to skip. We tracked through the middle school that we had a discrepancy there because they were going into gameplay and they weren't reinforcing the mature patterns that they should have been getting coming up from elementary school. And then as we worked our way back, we found out where the struggle was. And that was something we shored up and then marked as a priority for that grade level, so that when it gets up to the high school, it's a supporting standard instead. But it's one of those, you got to have people and you got to be in the mindset of, it's not always about me, and I'm not going to see those kids for 8 years, but what they're doing now, I'm inheriting. And when you start to see it that way, and anybody who's taught K-8 or K-12 or 6-12, you see that. But it's really just it's a conversation, and it's like this, time. I mean, this team over here, they have done, to be honest, every time I look over there, they've done very little with the computers open all the time, but the conversations they were having and setting up their structure and setting up how they're rolling into the standard space is phenomenal. Like, I wanted to drop a mic on that table just to hear how their standard base, their ideas, their process was going to happen. But we don't always get time given to us like this. And so that's where, it's important to have that communication through the vertical alignment. And that's hard when you have a district, small, large, whatever, who doesn't necessarily understand that. because art runs into the same thing, music runs into the same thing, STEM, tech, they all run into that same problem. What else? So another hand that had popped up.
I just want to say to my team, this work that you have done, we are doing this work. I mean, this work is being done. It's not in the same format,
Right.
obviously, but it is being done, and we did work on it with the new proposed standards. So I don't want you guys to all think that we're going to do this. We're not. We have to use the format that we hired
Yep.
to come in and do the format and do our proficiency scales and all of that. So we're not redoing anything like new. I just want you guys to know that. Like, we're still using our format. We've already done this. We've already identified our boulders, our butterflies, all that stuff, like what we need to assess, what we don't need to assess. And we've aligned it with the proposed new standards. So don't think that we're going backwards.
Yeah,
I just
no.
want you guys to think that, don't think that, because we worked really hard already, the SAC team, working on that.
Here's one of them.
Moving forward. So yeah, so we have we have a lot of our proficiency skills done, we're working on that. So our proficiency skills just look a little bit different. That will move into our standard-based grading, especially at the secondary level, and then also at the elementary level. So I just wanted to say that, so everyone's not kind of freaking out.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, and again, that's why it's less about, this is how it's supposed to look on the scale, more of here's the tools you have and the assessments you guys can start working together to do this. Because yeah, here is your first grade, proficiency scale. And so, your district is, at least the Sweetwater County District, has done a lot of work, and they're at the step now where they want to turn it over to you guys and have you guys provide the tools, the design, and the expectation to get there, instead of somebody walking in and saying, oh, by the way, you need to do this form and deal with it. Because that goes over real well. Yeah, no. So, yeah. And then those districts that aren't part of Sweetwater County, you guys, it is being done in the examples you would see and get and everything, because you may be the only one in your building going, okay, I'm going to try to align it. I'm going to start somewhere, and we're giving you the starting point. So, cool. What else?
I think it's easy, especially for those of us at the elementary level, it's really easy to get stuck on an island and feel like you're all by yourself. We don't have teaching partners. I've been in the same school for 20 years. I mean, you have to remember that we are all still trying to get our kids to the same place. Even though you're across town and I'm here, we don't see each other very often. We have to buy into what we do and continue to work on that level instead of just getting, I'll just do my own thing because nobody sees it anyway. Kind of thought process that you can get stuck in. Not that everybody's doing it on purpose, it just happens.
Yeah. Well, we get it in our buildings too.
Yeah, I never, this is the first year, and I'm not kidding you, first year, 23 years, I have someone in my building.
That's awesome.
So it's nice that I get to see him twice a week, but before that, it's just the nature of the beast sometimes, so we have to remember we all do have one goal in mind for our kids.
So the question is to the Sweetwater group, do you guys have a shared Google Drive that everybody has access to and you guys are putting stuff in and all of that? Okay, cool. Because there were, when you have folders that are shared and stuff like the one I just popped up that's the shared with me, folder sharing makes it really tough when that person leaves a district or they're the ones only holding it. So that shared drive, even if you do one within your building, helps quite a bit, because then even if somebody leaves, they can still, it still has access, people can still get into it. You're not locking somebody out and really turning people into an island digitally. So yeah. What else? Questions, concerns, wonders, worries, thoughts?
I'll open up a can of worms, I guess, just standard reference patterns. I've been a principal for 20 years. I'm not a PE teacher, like art, but I've been working with PE teachers for 20 years. And I know we're doing HRS, Marzano stuff up to our ears in Evanston, working towards standards reference grading. All the work I've done in several districts over 20 years with PE teachers, you run into the great debate over, Marzano says behavior is not part of the grade, right? It shouldn't be based on behavior. But then you have folks sometimes say, well, if a kid shows up every day and does what I want them to do, they're going to be proficient. So in the grade book, you always see that. So this has been valuable for us in terms of seeing different ways to create assessments and track and monitor more specific information that way. But just, I guess, how do you get folks to think beyond attendance-based PE? You know what I mean?
Anybody want to take a shot at it?
Maybe I want to run out of the room now. Huh?
I think you have to really get them to understand that they have to grade based on the standard. And behavior is a standard, personal and social behavior is a standard. There are learning targets in that standard, and that's how you have to grade it. And then there are other standards, like the fitness standards. And so I think you really have to get them to think about grading based on standards, and it's what they know and can do, not just showing up for class. It's like in math class, you don't just grade someone because they come to class and sit in the seat. You grade them because they produce work. They show evidence of what they know and can do in whatever math, whatever standards are for math. So getting them to think that way, I think, is really important, because if not, then PE is not meaningful. Like,
You don't even need a certified teacher to babysit.
so I think that's a really important thing to get.
And that a PE teacher is no different than a classroom teacher in that respect. Classroom teachers are responsible for the work they do, and we're responsible for the standards we have. And we have to show that we've done it. And show that the student has actually done more than just showed up.
Else? Who wants to add to that?
I was just going to say that when I talk to my kids, I try to let them know that you're not here for sharks and minnows. You're here for physical literacy, and you're here for me to equip you with a skill set so that you can move and experience the joys of movement as you grow older. And as a teacher, there was a lot of resistance in my district from our PE teachers to standards-based grading, and to the point, I would argue, if we're not careful and if we abandon our standards, it begins to look like physical activity instead of physical education. And a para can do physical activity. They can't do physical education.
You wanted to respond, didn't you?
And I guess, I don't know, this is a little bit more possibly rude, but I would say that just has to do with like good hiring. I think that that's part of the problem with PE, is that sometimes we hire people who do that, and then that muddies the waters of where, like, I'm sure a lot of us know people who aren't here right now, and not, there could be a lot of reasons they're not here, but there's a certain element of PE teaching that people don't, they get that job, they stay there, they're not trying to be a good teacher. And so I think hiring good people who are going to teach standard-based things is also really important.
And to throw not to throw the wrench in on purpose, but you look at the people you work with, you look at the district you're in, you look at how long some people are there. What is the steps, for convincing somebody who's been doing 25 years of the exact same thing, and they're loved by the community, and they're loved by the parents, and they're loved by everybody. Kids want to sign up, take their class. Kids want to participate or don't want to participate, but they are, the number one fill-up waitlist class, and they're not interested in the standards-based. What does that look like? Because my high school had 6 PE teachers, and I watched different things happen in different places, but it's not a matter of how long you've been doing it, it's a matter about where you feel comfortable. And unfortunately, in education, when we get those people there, we have parents and communities that their interaction with physical education is what their experience was. And if their experience was roll out the ball and play, or play, I mean, for lack of better place, play smear the queer, play dodgeball, play these, these activities, and there wasn't much literacy built into it, you run into that concept of now you're taking on the entire community. And as somebody who went, into Leadville, is very small and worked very hard to turn stuff around, again, kudos from, lots of people around in physical education. My district goes, yeah, well, the schedule's not really working out for the math and the science, and so we're going to put your schedule in the blender, and you just have to deal with it. And it's like, so the leveling of all of our students, the sports teachers or the sports coaches who didn't want anything to do with me, their kids are performing better, we're showing expectation, we're showing standards meeting, we're becoming, this icon of what needs to happen, and the admin didn't get it. And they're like, nope, put it in a blender, we're just going to scramble your classes. It's like, how do you approach that? Because, here, I mean, you have community roots in education, better or worse, that go really deep sometimes. And you have teachers that have been in that job for 30, 40 years, 20, 30, 40 years, and they've been doing it the same way they want to do it, and nobody's the wiser. The big thing I did for that was, because I'm sure like with you guys, parent-teacher conferences for us is work time. You get stuff done during parent-teacher conferences. Not a lot of people come and see us, unless somebody's bent because their kid has a low grade in PE, but they're the all-star of the football team, and they want to understand why. Well, it's because he's missed 6 days because of traveling for sports, and his expectation of completing these assignments to get caught up isn't done. Okay, it's like 6 sick days. If you don't catch up on your work, you're screwed. What I did was I started bringing the community in, bringing parents in, bringing coaches in, having them come be part of class, showing them what I'm doing, to the point where then the other teachers, bringing them in, letting them watch, letting them see, giving them little pieces, doing everything you can almost kill them with kindness to get them to change something. Because if they're sitting there using a clipboard and you do all the work and you make the form and you give them that, you give them the tablet, and all of a sudden they click and go boop, 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 it's gonna make them think a little bit. But you almost have to trick them into eating vegetables. And it allows them to think that they got it at their same time. But again, the number one thing with technology, if it doesn't work perfectly the first time, what do people usually do? Trash it, throw it in the drawer, desk drawer, okay? We were working on something, he had his all set up, he couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. I sat down, we looked at it, did you hit refresh? Solved the whole problem. But it was one of those things, he was thinking further on what could causing it, which is great, but it's that coming back to the moment and starting over again. And we can get so wrapped up with technology. I mean, I had my slides at the beginning on my introduction one, the words were all over the place. Could I have sat down real quick and changed it? Yeah. Was it important for me? No, not so much. Moving on. Same thing with my camera. That one I did want to prove because I wanted you to see the camera, so I fixed it real fast. But to do that when you have 36 kids watching or 15 kids watching, 10 kids over there, 5 kids over there, it doesn't really work. And that's where using the technology and the pieces and the tools where you can and letting those kids help you leverages that. And so, when you're looking at how do I politely nudge somebody along, you basically just got to kind of keep giving them the thing and let them kind of poke through it on their own. Because we still have, we have some programs that produce teachers that's what they do. We have people who go through the alternative license. I was a hockey coach for 15 years and I could totally teach PE. And I'm like, okay, why? Well, I can teach hockey. Okay, what about these standards? Oh, that's not worried about. I'll teach hockey. And we've all been there. We've all sat in those committees. We've all seen those discussions. So, that's the thing to do is you got to kind of, just kind of wear it away a little bit at a time until you get a different hire in, and as you start to shift the hires through, then you see it change. So yeah. What else?
I might add it to this conversation that I think a lot of what we're learning today is, being able to be more deliberate, more specific about the way we assess and what we assess. And I think we've all gained a lot of more understanding today about that process. But you can imagine, think about your school administrators. I mean, even some of the growth that we've made through this process together, and we've been trained in this field, and we are still learning and growing. We can't expect our administrators to just instantly know our content the way we do. And this process of being able to assess based on standards and evaluate our students based on standards is something we're going to have to help our administrators understand. And I think it's part of being an advocate for your field is in some ways teaching your principal how to evaluate you. Because like Ben said, they might have experienced physical education that was of a lower quality, right? We all know it's out there, right? So somebody's perception that's your boss and has this idea that, just being busy, happy, good in PE is okay. You can imagine the trouble that's going to cause you when it comes to the schedule and maybe, how you're evaluated throughout the year. So, I mean, you might look at it as, damn, should I really have to do that? Should I really have to teach my administrator how to evaluate me? You could come with that attitude if you want to, but the truth is that person's going to come evaluate you, and they're going to make decisions about your program, and it really is part of your job as an advocate for your field to help those people understand that. There's this concept of being a steward of the discipline. We all kind of have to accept that role, and I think what we're learning today and how we take that back to our schools is part of that process. So, hope you go do it.
Remember, the state of Wyoming, we are lucky right now that our state requires certified elementary PE teachers to teach PE. The state of Utah does not. They don't get a certified PE teacher till secondary level. And so if we aren't careful, we could end up
Colorado doesn't.
with that. They don't. Our state right now does require it.
Right. And now the next part is, does anybody know, does your state require minimum minutes of physical education or physical activity?
No, we do not have that right now.
Right. So Colorado, the Shape Colorado, they advocated and got it, and they got 300 minutes of physical activity a week for elementary. Catchword, activity.
Right. So
you walk between classes, that's activity. You do a brain break in class, that's activity. Your recess time, that's activity. Okay, so here in Sweetwater County, you guys have some pretty good recess times. Does your recess times match your physical education times?
We just did a big survey about this. All of you that got a survey from us at the university, we'll keep bugging you forever, but we found out that we don't have very much physical education going on in the state. Yeah. What Annette's talking about is if it keeps getting a budget crunch and we keep sort of having these conversations about what can we live without, that's a worst case scenario. I don't want to be doomsday, but that literally has happened in Utah, California. There's states around the country have just decided, well, the classroom teachers can teach that.
California, you don't have to be certified to teach PE, but you have to be certified to teach adaptive PE because it falls under the IEP and certifications there. So my niece and nephew go to a charter school out there. Their PE at first grade is run by some high school or college kid, sport kid, who comes in and plays soccer with them for 25 minutes or 35 minutes twice a week. That's his physical education. And like like was added over here, education and literacy need to be intertwined. Physical literacy, physical education, those need to be together, because now when we see that and say that, it's like you're learning. We're not, and we haven't even talked about the potential on the health side of obesity rates, medication rates, suicide, depression, all those things that come from all the endorphins and dopamine we release when we are moving and happy and encouraging. We all know this. It's not new information to us, but for some reason it seems to be mind-boggling for others. So, yeah. So, what else?
We just have to be better advocates for ourselves. We have to learn how to do that. It's not something, that's all is as easy as it sounds. We really do have to be able to beat our own drum. And we're not
And-
technically people that really like to do that.
Right, and elementary has the advantage sometimes because kids want to come to PE. Kids want to participate. Middle school, high school, it's like pulling teeth. You know, and again, pulling teeth, and it sometimes isn't worth the fight that day, and it becomes a whole nother ball game. And especially on the health side. I mean, you guys have the health expectations at the elementary, say that you have to teach and everything. High school, same thing, but guess what? Health changes a lot. I mean, think about it. If we had some of the conversations that those kids we have in health when it goes to, drugs, alcohol, sex, relationships, self-care, we have those conversations that we have. If their parents had it or their parents showed them or helped them, oh my gosh, let's put the parents in the room. Let's teach them how to do this. We would watch kids just change overnight. We would watch parents, but parents don't want to have those conversations. It's hard for them. And so it's one of those things that we have yes, somebody who's teaching Shakespeare and they're talking, about stabbing or, Midsummer's Night Dream, which goes through the whole gamma of the sexuality. They have to talk about it there. We have to talk about it in real terms. We have to go over it in real terms. And it's not like our society is getting any easier when it comes to talking about those things. Yet we're expected to be the ones that, address it in a manner that is physical, literacy, education, health focused to help. So without stepping on everybody's toes, talk about it, but don't talk about it. It's like, okay. So.
Well, and do it at younger and younger ages. I mean, most of the time, you get one high school health class to meet standards that go to 12th grade. It ends at 9th grade.
Does any of the health teachers in here know what the average age of kids starting sexual activity in Wyoming is?
13.
13? Okay. Colorado's 12. And it's like, so we have to start having that, And it was, it becomes a whole new ball game. It's like when you look at that, it's like, think about, drugs, alcohol, think about relationships, think about what social, and I can't say that social media is not beneficial because it is when it's used as a tool. All of these things, everything we did today is great as a tool. We got to break everybody's idea that it's a toy or distraction. And that's where making it purposeful helps. I know teachers that run phenomenal programs and they use TikTok constantly. I know teachers that have phenomenal Twitter accounts. I know teachers that have phenomenal YouTube channels. I really had a problem when the world went sideways and P.E. Ben or whatever his name was from the UK was doing all the videos and was getting all this fame and fortune on it. And I'm like, congratulations, he's Mr. Rogers or he's Bob Ross. They're content creators. They're not teachers. They're not educators. They're not asking the question and providing a response. They're just demoing it. And they're being labeled as PE teachers. They're being labeled that way. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Everybody in this room is designing assessments, is looking at what the kids are doing, helping them get there. So we have to break that idea too. Because, hey, guess what? You have a YouTube channel, you're doing dancing. Congratulations, you're a PE teacher. No. You're a content creator. You are not. You're Bill Nye, you're Bob Ross, you're Mr. Rogers, you're Sesame Street. You are not a teacher. You are an entertainer who provides support and facts and stuff, but you're not giving feedback. That's the difference as education. We provide feedback and growth. Cool, what else? We got about 10 minutes. All right, so here we go. I personally think you guys did a phenomenal job today. I think everything's going well. So this is what I want. We're going to go around. Everybody needs to say one thing that they're planning on using in some way in the next week, and one thing they hope to eventually use. We get through everybody, we wrap it up. Seem fair? Okay, so one thing that you would use Monday or sometime next week, and one thing that you see down the road, something you really want to try or use.
Go first.
Well,
definitely use quizzes.
Okay.
So we use with that, I think, which I already do, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you were doing today, I hadn't done yet. But, and then also, too, we've been working on the forums forever with testing and stuff, and to have it put into an Excel sheet and all that, where it's definitely
Cool. one down.
Ben, can we also add into that where you're from and how many miles you traveled to be here today? I just want to, because I don't know that everybody knows, and we didn't take
So
time for that.
give him the microphone, and then he can just pass, and we'll pass the microphone around.
Yeah. Anyways, Matt Gardner, I'm from here. Well, not from here, but I teach here.
I'm Annette. I've taught in Rock Springs for 23 years. I will be using the Google Forms for a teacher to do my final assessments. I'm going to set up that for PE. We've done it for health. We haven't done it for PE. So I want to do that. And then we use Google Slides to teach. So I'm going to make them interactive.
Okay.
So hopefully the kids can do more.
Okay. Snowballs are really good. If you have something like this, have them throw the snowballs, the little yarn balls.
Right.
Works really well.
I'm Gina. I'm here in Rock Springs, and same ditto. I want to try and use Padlet, and then I want to try and make forms for exit tickets for PE.
Well, I've been I'm Eric. I'm from here. I've had the privilege of seeing Ben before at Wayford, so I already use a lot of this stuff. So thank you. But I'd like to use QR codes more in the gym. I use them a lot in health, but not the gym. And I think there's a lot of ways to use QR codes in the gym. So thank you.
Okay.
I'm Katie. I'm from here. I'll continue to use the Google Forms, especially for our assessment like Matt talked about. And next week we'll probably do a quizzes after the Pacer.
I'm Troy. I'm from Evanston. I suppose 100 and some odd miles. Use some type of Google form for peer assessment. Okay. And I was talking to the guys over there from Horizon. They're from Evanston. Somehow using the iPad, but being able to do grades just on the iPad, not do grades twice from a clipboard.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
My name's Chris Babb. I'm from Lander. It's 2 hours from here. I'm in my fitness unit right now, so I really like the Pacer assessment with the Google form. So when I get back, that's what I'm going to incorporate.
Okay. That's one thing you're shooting for. What do you see down the road of something you could use?
Oh, I want to use, I saw the video that you embedded in quizzes. That's what I would like to try.
Okay. Good.
My name's Logan Wasson. I traveled here from Lusk, about 5 hours away. And something that I'm going to use at least next week or the following week is quizzes.
Okay.
I love that database. It's awesome. Today's my first, well, I saw Chris show it at Wayford. I believe it was Wayford, yeah. And then something I really liked was those Google Forms. That was the first time I've seen that. So I'm going to use that for assessment in the future for sure.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Also.
Yeah. My name is Brianna. I'm from Green River, so 11 miles west. Well, I don't know that I'm going to get any of this in because we're done with school. Like next week is our last week, and then it's field day and all of that, and I'm going to be gone a couple days. But I do use quizzes, and I'm hoping to do the Google Forms, and I like the assessment for the Pacer test. So.
I'm Kaylor. I'm teaching Green River, but I live over here. I'm going to use the QRC codes or the QR codes for check-in and check-out. And then down the road, I think the portfolio idea is like really cool to see like a summative of the learning.
And I'm going to include an example on that portfolio. We actually had one of our elementary teachers go through all the standards, and she actually made like a 72-page portfolio that the kids go through and add pictures as they go throughout the year. So it's all built. So I'll share that as well.
My name's Calvin. I teach in Basin, like 4.5-ish hours. I created a couple Google Forms for Check for Understanding on the soccer unit I'm doing, and then in the future, I want to use that. I do quizzes a little bit, but I want to use that one where you did the slideshow and then integrated the Check for Understanding as you go. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I'm Tim from Teton County, and I won't be starting until next year, so I won't be doing anything Monday, but with this stuff. But definitely quizzes. That was easy for me to work through, and I've already ordered some fitness finders for a mileage club with a QR code, and they can just scan it and do their laps. So that I like that interactive board wall, but I don't think that's going to happen. It seemed to be pricey, so maybe in the future with that.
Casey from Evanston, so not too far away, 100 miles. And then for me, I'd just like to get really handy with forms, both on the teacher side, so I can assess a little bit better in the moment, and then on the student side, so they can do a lot more peer assessment. We have a really small gym, so we have to rotate in and out, and when they're out, I picture that as something that they can do. Even if they just get better at the vocab and identifying things, that could really help out them.
So on that side, just a side note, when I have a kid that comes in and says, a health reason or whatever that they can't participate, I give them one of the tablets and I put them on Padlet and I have them then, okay, you got to go around and identify everything we're doing today and show me proof of it. So that's a way to do that too.
So, I'm Shad Hamilton. I'm the principal at Horizon. My goal for being here, we've got a few folks here from Evanston, from EHS and Horizon. We're the alt school, and then the bigger high school as everybody. It's just our district's going through HRS Level 3 certification next year, working towards that, which is all GVC, Guaranteed Viable Curriculum. And getting, I want to be able to support all of the teachers in my building and establishing that GVC with the high school, making sure that what we're providing students at Horizon is equitable and the same as what they're getting at EHS. So we kind of have to work as teams to do that. And this is the first really opportunity that we've had near Evanston, or even I'd say Wyoming based, to really look at standards reference grading, which is part of where all this work leads. So we jumped on it. That's why I'm here.
Cool. Yep, college students you get an answer to.
Okay. I'm Aubrey. I go to University of Wyoming, so Laramie. Obviously I'm not teaching yet, but in the future I really want to use the interactive projector, the moving targets. I think that's a really cool idea.
So I'm Adam. I'm from Big Piney, Wyoming, but I'm in Laramie right now. And I really thought the use of GIFs was cool. I think using it for like skills specifically will be really useful for me, where they have to watch themselves. And that's about it.
Okay.
My name's Jason. I'm from Rock Springs, 2 blocks this way. So when we went through it, I think the standards-based ideas that we're going towards, I think the forms will be great. We got a folder going to shore up the high school and the junior high, which will be super helpful. In the future, I would like to use, we talked about using the QR codes in the weight room to help kids be able to see and do lifts appropriately. We show them, but sometimes you're helping somebody else, they don't know what they're doing, so I think those will be super helpful.
I'm Courtney, I'm from here. Something I want to use next week is the quizzes. I thought that was really cool. We had set up a couple quizzes already for our students. And then for the future, just the Google Forms with going into standard-based grading, doing that, I think it'd be helpful.
I'm Steph, I'm from Rock Springs. I created a quizzes that I want to use in my health class next week. And then for future, I want to use the QR codes and the forms for PE.
I'm Darcy. I'm from here. The quizzes is what I would use next week. We kind of talked about using it actually in a health class while they're working on projects or working on their project, having them set up where they go around and take a project break so that we can still assess on what their understanding of different learning targets that we've been working on. And then what I'm going to definitely use in the future next year is my job shadowing check-in, check-out clock. I'm pretty pumped about that.
It only took us about half day.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Hey, it's now made though.
We're leaving with
I'm
this.
excited about that one.
I am Teresa. I'm from Rock Springs. And next week I want to use a QR code for my exit ticket in PE. And then just the Google Forms with the junior high and high school as we move into standards-based grading.
Now we're to the back row. Okay. And also you guys, this stuff, so high school and stuff, all the Olympic lifting, strength conditioning stuff that I did and everything you guys will have access to. I'm throwing it in the shared stuff so you can see how I set that up and everything that way to build into what you guys are doing for your forms and stuff like that.
Hi, I'm John. I'm from Laramie. So I had 300 miles to get here, or 200 miles, 3 hours to get here. And I'm actually going out and doing some geocaching with my middle school students in a week and a half. And we're going to be at Kurt Gowdy State Park, and I'm already going to be using those QR codes. I mean, that's a lot better than having a log that gets soaked with rainwater, or, you know, that they have to fill out and they break their pencil. So I'm looking forward to just telling students, yeah, absolutely, bring your phone with us to camp and let's do some QR code stuff.
There you go.
I'm Emily. I'm from over in Green River. We're kind of wrapping up the school year, so I've already done a lot of my summative assessment stuff with Google Forms, but going forward, using them for assessment, for keeping track of psychomotor performance for sure. That's way easier than trying to keep track of stacks and stacks of paper. So.
Right. Cool.
So my name is Jared Flores. I'm from Green River. I teach at Lincoln, the middle school over there. So again, since we're kind of wrapping things up, I've kind of done all my summative assessments as well with forms and other assessments. But I think we're trying to do like a portfolio where kids are going to be able to like track their technique and like their pacer and their mile times, and kind of carry that with them from 6th grade through 8th grade, so they can kind of see the progression from where they started to where they ended. So that, and then kind of using the Padlet as kind of a show me your form, and then also like show me like this, write out the skill cues like we did over there.
Good.
My name is Pat. I'm over in Evanston. Half my time I'm in the PE department, half my time I'm in administration. Going into next week, we're kind of starting to work towards the end, moving into Pacer. So I think the Google Forms stuff that we did here, for me to be able to take that back and share is going to be super good, and we're going to be able to use that. I think also one of the pushes we'll use is trying to do some more QR code stuff in our weight room, check in, check out, or even as they're leaving the locker room. You know, you don't always want the cell phones and things in the weight room, but as they leave the locker room, it'd be a great time to maybe, you know, check in with them. So.
My name is Lanning May, and I teach PE in Burlington Middle School and High School. I'm looking forward to using the iPads in my weights classes to analyze technique, so they can partner check their technique. I'm looking forward to getting my forms ready this summer so I can use them in my PE summative assessments. That'll come in handy, and that's about it. I think I'm going to use the quizzes in my health classrooms, so to check for understanding there. Thanks.
I'm Andrew Gephardt. I'm from Gillette, so 5.5 hours. And I'll probably next week do the Google Forms for some assessment that we created for gross motor for kindergarten. And then going forward, QR codes and quizzes. So.
I'm Kim Buston. I'm from Rock Springs. I think I'd like to use the QR codes for maybe PE for Monday and see, because we're in a rec game unit, and so I'd like to use that to see, how they enjoyed it or something like that. I like the quizzes because I've used Google Forms before, and I like them because of the feedback, the quick feedback. And I think quizzes is kind of the same way. You get that immediate feedback of what they know, what they don't know, and that's more in my health classes. So, and I really love Padlet. I would like to do that next year, where if I set that up, maybe they can teach the concept to their peers, or even like critique themselves in some skills.
You took all mine. I'm Kim Fouts, and I'm here as well in Rock Springs. We actually applied for the interactive wall and got denied with our ESSER funds, but we're going to keep trying to apply for that. But in the meantime, try to make that and have it displayed on our wall for the kids to do. And then the Padlet is one of my new favorites. And I see it all the time as a parent with Mr. Erlacher, and my daughter does that a lot. So I really want to incorporate that a lot for things to do outside of school, for them to demonstrate and show things with their families.
Your daughter's a Padlet champion.
Yeah.
I'm Deb Stevenson. I'm also from Rock Springs, and I've used quite a few of these things, but the best part, Ben, is you gave me new ideas and ways to use them. So I've got a couple of ideas for next week with the QR codes, and I'm kind of thinking next year and figuring out how to do the portfolios.
All right. So, yep. Go.
That's for last. My name is Paul. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. And I probably won't use any of this next week. I graduate with a master's degree 1 week from today, but further down the road, I'd like to have my students use the video editor to analyze their performance of a skill.
What? Okay, and just for the wrap up, because you've heard people talk about the interactive wall and stuff, and if I don't point it out, I'm going to get, somebody's going to comment on it and make a thing. So what I have, it's called a Lose system, and it actually turns one of my walls into a big interactive touch system. And what it does is it's a projector that's watching the with a video so Kinect camera that's watching the wall. So here on the right side of it, there are different programs and applications. This one's a basketball for them to work on. But it gives them instant feedback. It tracks the ball, it tracks the equipment, it gives a score, it gives the points, it's got a countdown, it's got lights, the whole light thing bounces around. There are no lights on in my gym, that's all through solar panels that we have. But as you see, just like you guys did, this is the active warm-up station that they go through, starts of class, allows me to assess everything going on. Again, very, very little stuff. These kids, I want to say these are second graders. Yes, this was 2 years ago. And as we do it, but it allows all of it moving. This is, the gym that I have and everything. But again, the big interactive wall, it's called the Lose system. They have a mobile version, so like spaces in here, it can be set up on a big stand and everything goes up. It takes about 15 minutes to set up, but it's completely interactive. So now this is using a lap counter. So every time the kids go by, they touch one of the airplanes and it does a lap. It just gives a new time break. It's one, getting them used to it, but two, them getting to see when the last time somebody touched. And so I would challenge them, because otherwise they just touch. It's like, okay, you got to see how close to a 1 second or a 3 second or a 5 second split we can break. And so they're running around doing their cardio like you guys did, and they come up to it and they watch it and they see if they can make that break be 5 seconds. So it keeps them active, keeps them moving. They have a new app that's out that's called Mood that actually shows emotions. And so I have the kids touch how they feel as they run around, and then it does a pie chart and shows how the class feels as a whole. Way better, way easier, great way to take care of, what your class emotional, view is that day. So you're going to see 3 different activities going on here. So on the wall is going to be leaf. It's a cross-curricular with science. It's the leaf plant cycle, but they have to hit different objects to make the tree grow based on photosynthesis expectations. In the middle, they're doing tree poses and balance poses, so they're actually making themselves a plant. And then in the back, they're doing a quizzes that has questions based on the stuff they got from the teacher on the plant life cycle and such like that. So there's cross-curricular. One has, again, the movements and the fine motor, the knowledge, the balance, and then they shift up and they have the gross motor. All cross-curricular, all on time going. So, and this was back when we were at like 45 minutes. I could go through it, but we have active, we have moving, and such like that. So, and I mean, all the sound, all the music, all the text, all the intro videos, all that stuff I create. That's a whole nother day that I could show you how to do all that stuff. But yeah, so for those who had never seen the Lou or know what I'm talking about, those who were at Wayford, they got to see it kind of as a mock for my computer up on the wall. So yeah. So with that being said, the final slide. Okay, here's the thing. My email's there. You guys have the presentation, but my email right there. Email me anytime. Okay, if you get stuck and you're like, none of my students can get to my Google form, email me. I'm not going to lie, within about 10 to 15 seconds, I will have sent you a response. Okay, because one, it just goes, that's my work one, it goes to my work tablet that sits on my desk. And because of how I process things, I open up and I send it right off. I can usually hit whatever the cause is in the first, couple of rounds, but if you have a question, reach out. I would rather be bombarded with emails from everybody for the next month than hear crickets. Okay? And if you're like, I don't know how to do something, or even, hey, you know what? You talked about doing the video editing. Where would I start? Ask. Okay? Because I will answer. It's something I do. I have teachers from 10, 15 years ago that still will email me after they figured out how my email changed when I changed districts. They still email and ask. So you guys ask. And even if it's I'm stuck, I need help, hey, check this out, whatever. I'm here, I'm available. Technology-wise, digital-wise, I will respond to you. Some of you may be, startled that all of a sudden there's a response back. But again, you guys saw one of my classes. I took 40 minutes down to 4 minutes. I'm pretty active moving around, but my kids are dialed in, and that's 4 years worth of work to get them to that point. So I want you guys to be successful. I want to be available. I'm going to try to flood you or give you access to as much stuff as we can from this. And then we're going to, move on for the virtual stuff and really kind of start making those standard alignments more meaningful. All right? Oh, yes, and I'm from Falcon, Colorado. It's a 7.5 to 8 hour drive, and I did it in 6 hours yesterday morning. So, yeah. So, yeah, left at 4. No, radar detector didn't pick up anything. So, left at 4, got into town by 10. We'll see what the timing's like going back tonight. So,
a couple of announcements before we go.
You will get it sent to you.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
Just,
whoa, announcements real quick.
Don't let them leave. Not leaving yet.
Real quick announcements.
Just real quick, everybody. From YOPEAT, thank you for being here. And if you are not already have joined as a collaborator of YOPEAT, please go to yopeat.com. Go on. There's a place that's really easy to find where you can join. That way you can stay in the know and also share that information with other people. As far as schedule goes, remember June 1st and June 2nd, we will be virtual. All of you have registered. You'll get that information. You'll get the link that goes directly to it. So we won't be 0 dark 30 on that or anything. You'll keep getting that information. And also the video of everything we've done today, as soon as Ben helps me edit that and get it in a format that's really easy to look at, that's going to be available to you. You can share that with anybody. You can still get PTSB credit even if you're not here live and in person. You can still get UW Master's credit even if you're not here live and in person, as long as you have access to the videos, and with UW Master's credit, as long as you paid your $50. Honestly, that's what they want. But you can go on and you can also share all that information with your colleagues. The point of what YOPEAT is trying to accomplish is we want to have these evidence-based professional development sessions for you. We want you to collaborate together. We want you to become stewards of our discipline together, and we want to be able to take advantage of the expertise that we already have in the room. We can't do that if you don't share that information out and spread the word together. So we've been very successful in that way. We want you to continue with that. Also, on that note, YOPEAT partners very closely with Wayford, and I want Deb to share, and Chris as well, some information about upcoming events from Wayford. So please, Deb, Stephen.
That was the first thing I was going to say, is what a great partnership we have been able to establish between Wayford and YOPEAT. Couple of announcements. November 12th and 13th will be our convention this year, and it is in Landard. I have one more thing to tell you after he tells you a couple of things. This is Chris Babb, who is our president. Just give him a couple plugs about it.
Yep, come to Lander. Okay, if you enjoyed this today, this is a lot of what we're doing. We're talking standards-based, we're talking assessment, we're talking pedagogy, and it ain't Riverton, so come to Lander.
His theme is change your altitude, so it'll be fun. Also, really exciting new event that we have secured a grant to be able to do this. It is called Healthy Kids Roundup. It is basically a one-day conference for kids. It is focusing this year on 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We're going to take them to the university. We hope it'll be teams of about 5 to 6 kids from your school. I know we have a lot of middle school people here, so think about that, bringing a team. The kids will go through sessions during the day, very active kinds of things. The adults will be there to learn how to take the information with the kids. Very kid-focused, though. The kids are supposed to go back then, and the idea is they will create some sort of event in their school using some of the tools that we will give them that day.
There'll be funding for you.
And there will be some, well, yeah, for some things, yes. We have the possibility of them being, of you being able to write some small grants to help you get a little bit of that accomplished. So we are super excited about this event and what the possibilities are for this year and in the future, because we've pretty much been assured that this will be continuing granting funding for us.
Middle school only.
6th, 7th, and 8th, yep.
At this time, middle school only, but
and that date
as it grows, we'll get more.
is October 7th. So you'll see more information coming out in our Wayford S'mores and things, and on our website as soon as we have a little more solid information that we can give you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.